Imagine this. You're in a room filled with ambitious individuals, each striving for success. Some play fair, working hard, staying true to their values. Others lie, manipulate, and crush anyone who stands in their way. And yet, it's often the ruthless ones who reach the highest peaks. Why is that? Is the world truly designed to reward those who have no regard for morality? Look around. History, politics, business. Time and again, we see individuals who, despite their lack of ethics, manage to seize extraordinary power. From tyrannical emperors to ruthless corporate leaders, the pattern is unmistakable. But this isn't a mere coincidence. It's a fundamental aspect of human nature, deeply embedded in our evolutionary psychology and social structures. In a world of limited resources, competition is inevitable. Those who hesitate, who constantly seek fairness, often get left behind. Meanwhile, those willing to exploit, deceive, and dominate rise to the top. This brutal reality forces us to confront an unsettling question: is morality a weakness in the pursuit of power? Yet the paradox remains. While the worst people often succeed in the short term, history is also filled with stories of their downfall. The real question isn't just why they rise, but whether their success is truly sustainable. And more importantly, what does this mean for those who refuse to abandon their principles? Nietzsche saw power as an undeniable force of life, neither good nor evil, but an inherent truth of existence. To understand why the worst often rise to the top, we must first understand the nature of power itself. And to do that, we must explore one of Nietzsche's most controversial ideas: master morality versus slave morality. Let's go deeper. Picture two warriors on a battlefield. One is strong, decisive, and fearless. He takes what he wants, shapes the world to his will, and does not ask for permission. The other is hesitant, waiting for validation, seeking fairness, hoping that virtue alone will grant him victory. Which of these two is more likely to survive? Which is more likely to rule? Nietzsche argued that morality itself is not a universal truth, but a construct shaped by power struggles throughout history. He identified two fundamental moral systems: master morality and slave morality. These are not just abstract theories. They explain why ruthless individuals often dominate, while those who prioritize kindness and fairness struggle. Master morality is the morality of the strong, leaders, conquerors, the ones who shape history. It values strength, ambition, courage, and self-determination. To the masters, good is whatever enhances their ability to create, command, and impose their will. They do not seek approval, they define their own worth. They take full responsibility for their destiny and view weakness not as something to be protected, but as something to be overcome. Slave morality, on the other hand, is the morality of the powerless, the oppressed, those who cannot impose their will directly. Instead of celebrating strength, it glorifies humility, obedience, and self-sacrifice. It teaches that suffering is noble and that power itself is inherently corrupt. Nietzsche saw slave morality as a survival mechanism, an adaptation for those who lack the ability to dominate. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Slave morality doesn't prevent the rise of the ruthless, it enables it. By condemning ambition, by shaming the pursuit of power, it leaves power in the hands of those who have no regard for morality. While the noble-hearted hesitate, those who embrace master morality take control. And in a world where hesitation equals defeat, the outcome is inevitable. So what does this mean for us? Should we abandon morality and embrace the path of the ruthless? Or is there another way to reconcile strength with virtue? To answer that, we must delve deeper into the psychology of those who rise, the ones who refuse to be victims of circumstance. Picture a vast, untamed wilderness. Here, survival is not determined by fairness or kindness. It is dictated by strength, adaptability, and the willingness to do what must be done. The lion does not ask permission to hunt. The storm does not apologize for its destruction. Nature does not reward morality. It rewards resilience. It rewards those who can endure, those who can dominate. Human society is no different. Beneath the veneer of laws and social contracts, the primal battle for survival continues. And those who rise to power often share one defining trait: ruthlessness. Not necessarily cruelty, but the ability to act decisively, unburdened by hesitation or guilt. This is no accident. It is an evolutionary adaptation, a mechanism that has enabled both individuals and empires to seize control in a world that does not pause for the hesitant. Psychologists have long examined the traits that drive success in competitive environments. Again and again, the same patterns emerge: an unrelenting ambition, a diminished sensitivity to fear, and, perhaps most controversially, a reduced capacity for empathy toward those who stand in the way. This is not to say that all powerful individuals are psychopaths, but it does suggest that many possess traits that allow them to act unburdened by the emotional constraints that inhibit others. Consider the leaders, entrepreneurs, and conquerors who have reshaped history. From Julius Caesar to today's business titans, the pattern remains consistent. Hesitation is a liability, and power is taken, not granted. The strong do not wait for permission to lead. They step forward, take risks, and deal with the consequences later. This is why the ruthless often ascend, while the hesitant remain in the shadows. Yet here lies the paradox. Ruthlessness alone is insufficient. Those who wield power without wisdom often meet spectacular downfalls. The very qualities that propel individuals to the top can also engineer their demise. A leader who rules through fear alone will eventually be consumed by the very forces they once commanded. History is littered with tyrants who believed themselves untouchable until they weren't. So if power is often seized by the ruthless, does this mean morality and fairness are doomed to fail? Not necessarily, but to understand why, we must confront one of modern society's greatest illusions: the belief that the world is fair. From childhood, we are told a comforting story that the world is just, that virtue is rewarded, and that fairness will always prevail. Fairy tales, religious teachings, and moral philosophies reinforce this belief. Yet as we step into reality, a brutal contradiction emerges. The hardest workers are not always the wealthiest. The most honest do not always lead. The kindest souls are often the most broken. This disconnect is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Fairness in many ways is a social construct, a narrative designed to maintain order rather than reflect reality. It is a soothing illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. Power and success are not handed out based purely on merit. They are seized, fought for, and often hoarded by those who understand the game better than others. Psychological research identifies a phenomenon known as the just world fallacy, the tendency to believe that life is inherently fair, that people get what they deserve. This belief is dangerous because it breeds passivity. If we assume that goodness alone leads to success, we risk overlooking the realities of competition, strategy, and power. And while we wait for justice, those who do not share our illusions are already advancing. But does this mean morality is futile? Should we abandon all principles in the pursuit of power? Not quite. The key is to understand the game without becoming enslaved by it. Those who suffer most are often those who believe that playing nice is enough. But those who learn to balance integrity with strategic thinking, who merge kindness with strength, are the ones who redefine the rules. The truth is this: fairness is not something we can passively expect. It is something we must actively create, and that requires power. Nietzsche recognized this struggle as fundamental to human existence. His solution was neither to surrender to the illusion of fairness nor to embrace mindless ruthlessness. Instead, he pointed to something greater, a way to transcend both weakness and cruelty. To grasp this, we must explore one of his most revolutionary ideas: the Übermensch, the individual who rises beyond morality, beyond illusions, and beyond limitations. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of an abyss. Behind you lies the world as it is, dominated by injustice, weighed down by limitations, and confined by convention. Before you stretches the unknown, a path only the bold dare to walk. Most will hesitate, shackled by fear and doubt. But a rare few will take the leap. These are the Übermenschen, the ones who rise above the herd, who carve their own path, who redefine power on their own terms. Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, is not about brute strength or blind domination. It is about self-overcoming. The Übermensch refuses to be a victim of circumstances. They do not blindly accept imposed morality, nor do they conform to the expectations of others. Instead, they shape their own destiny. At the core of the Übermensch is the will to power. Unlike the passive morality of submission and guilt, this will is about embracing one's deepest instincts, to create, to transform, to impose meaning upon a meaningless world. It is not about controlling others, but about mastering oneself. While the weak remain trapped by fear, the Übermensch moves forward, untethered from illusion. But here's the key. The Übermensch is not ruthless for the sake of cruelty. Unlike tyrants and manipulators who seize power out of insecurity, the Übermensch does not seek validation. Their strength comes from within. They do not rely on deception or oppression because their power is self-generated, independent of external approval or fleeting success. This is why the worst people may rise to power, but they will never truly transcend. The ruthless play a temporary game, climbing through manipulation and force. But the Übermensch plays the infinite game, building something greater than themselves. They are creators, not mere takers. So, how do we embody this? How do we navigate a world that rewards the ruthless while refusing to become one of them? The answer lies in understanding power, not as a weapon, but as a tool. The next step is learning how to compete in a world that does not wait for the kind-hearted. Picture this. You're in a high-stakes game where the rules are written by those who play to win at any cost. If you hesitate, if you assume fairness will protect you, you lose. This is the reality in business, politics, and life itself. The ruthless know this. They take what they want. But does this mean you must become like them to survive? Not necessarily. The mistake most people make is believing they have only two choices: be ruthless or be a victim. But there is a third path, one that blends strategic thinking with integrity, one that allows you to compete without losing your soul. Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't about blind domination. It was about transcending weakness while maintaining authenticity. The key is understanding power without being enslaved by it. Here's how. One of the greatest weaknesses people have is believing life should be fair. It shouldn't. It never was. The strongest competitors accept this early on. They don't waste time complaining about injustice. They learn the rules of the game and use them to their advantage. This doesn't mean abandoning ethics. It means recognizing that power is neutral, and those who understand it wield it best. Many fail because they assume kindness alone will bring them success. But power is rarely given. It is taken. That doesn't mean becoming cruel, but it does mean understanding the minds of those who seek to exploit you. Strategic empathy means reading people deeply, recognizing their motives, and anticipating their moves. It allows you to navigate deception without becoming deceptive. Most people are controlled by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of standing alone. The Übermensch, however, develops internal power. This means embracing discomfort, taking risks, and forging your own path despite opposition. The most successful people do not ask for permission. They create opportunities where none exist. There is a difference between mindless ruthlessness and controlled ruthlessness. The first is destruction without purpose. The second is the ability to make hard choices without hesitation. At times, power requires walking away from toxic relationships, making unpopular decisions, or confronting uncomfortable truths. This is not cruelty, it is strength. The key is knowing when and how to apply it. The ruthless may rise fast, but they also fall hard. Why? Because their power is built on exploitation, not creation. The true Übermensch builds, whether it's a business, an idea, a movement, or a personal transformation. When you create value, you become indispensable. You do not need to manipulate because your power is earned, not stolen. So can you succeed in a world that rewards the ruthless? Absolutely. But only if you stop playing by the old rules, stop expecting fairness, and start mastering power on your own terms. But this brings us to the ultimate question. Is power itself evil, or is it simply misunderstood? Power. It's the force that drives the world, shaping the lives of those who possess it and those who are at its mercy. But is power inherently evil? Nietzsche's conception of power was never about mere domination. It was about creation. The drive for power, he believed, is often misinterpreted. It isn't about crushing others underfoot, it's about surpassing oneself. It is the relentless urge to transcend present limitations and evolve into something greater than imagined. Yet history is littered with rulers and leaders who, once in possession of power, succumb to ego, greed, and tyranny. This recurring cycle forces us to ask, is power inherently corrupt, or does it merely amplify the shadows lurking within human nature? For Nietzsche, power in its purest form was never about harming others. It was about self-mastery, about pushing beyond conventional morality and daring to create new values. But in a society that venerates humility and virtue, the pursuit of power is often met with suspicion. What if this perception is flawed? What if rejecting conventional morality and forging your own path isn't a descent into corruption, but rather an embrace of life in its rawest, most unfiltered state? To Nietzsche, the will to power wasn't a craving for control over others. It was an internal force, a ceaseless drive to live fully, to test the boundaries of one's potential. Seen this way, power isn't a corrupting force, but an ethical pursuit, one that demands the courage to break free from societal chains and define one's own existence. But does this mean that all who seek power are noble? Hardly. The road to power is a double-edged sword, capable of leading one to enlightenment or to ruin. The distinction lies in intent. Is the pursuit of power merely a means to dominate, or is it a journey of self-overcoming, a quest to shape reality according to one's highest ideals? So is power evil? Not inherently. It is a tool, one that, in the hands of the disciplined and the principled, can forge unimaginable greatness. But when wielded selfishly or as a means of oppression, it exposes the darkest recesses of human nature. Nietzsche's challenge to us is simple yet profound. Do not fear power, master it, discipline it, wield it with strength and integrity, and above all, use it as a force to become more than you are today.